Lena stood still at the edge of the forest while holding a worn letter in her hands. The wind moved gently through the trees and made soft sounds that felt like quiet voices. She had traveled far to reach this place, and now that she was here her feet felt heavy. The forest looked deeper and darker than she imagined. Tall trees blocked most of the sky, and the path ahead felt narrow and old. The letter had arrived 1 week after her grandmother Mira passed away. Lena still remembered the shock she felt when she read that she was the only one mentioned in the will. There was no money written in the letter and no city apartment. There was only one thing. A house hidden inside a forest far away from where Lena lived. The letter said the house belonged to the family for many years and now it belonged to Lena. It also said Lena must come alone. Lena had always been close to her grandmother. Mira was a calm woman with kind eyes and a soft voice. She never spoke loudly and never shared much about her past. When Lena was a child, Mira would tell her gentle stories before sleep. Many of those stories were about forests, trees, and hidden places. Lena thought they were just bedtime stories made to calm a child. Now those stories felt different. Lena took a slow step forward and followed the narrow path into the forest. Dry leaves covered the ground and cracked softly under her shoes. The air felt cooler as she walked deeper. After several minutes, the trees opened slightly, and she saw the house. The house stood alone, surrounded by tall trees on all sides. It looked old but strong. The wooden walls were dark from age and weather. Green plants climbed up the sides and wrapped around the window frames. The roof was uneven but still solid. It looked like the house had been standing there for a very long time, waiting quietly. Lena stopped in front of the house and looked at it closely. The windows were tall and narrow. The glass looked clear, as if someone cleaned them often. The front door was painted dark green and the paint was cracked but neat. It did not look abandoned. It looked cared for. Lena reached out and touched the door. The wood felt warm under her hand, which surprised her. She pushed the door slowly and it opened with a low sound. The inside of the house was quiet and still. Dust floated gently in the air as light entered from the windows. She stepped inside and closed the door behind her. The room was larger than she expected. A wooden table stood in the center with a clean cloth placed carefully on top. A chair rested near the fireplace and a folded blanket lay across it. Everything looked like it had been left only hours ago. Lena walked slowly around the room. Shelves covered one wall filled with books of different sizes. None of the books had titles on their covers. Another wall held many framed pictures. Lena moved closer and studied them. Each picture showed the same forest but in different seasons. Some showed green leaves and sunlight. Others showed snow covering the ground. There were no people in any of the pictures. Her heart beat faster as she continued walking. The house felt alive in a quiet way. The floor made gentle sounds under her steps. Lena felt like the house was listening. She remembered something her grandmother once said. Some places remember the people who care for them. Lena did not understand those words back then. Now they made sense. Lena moved toward a hallway at the back of the house. There were several doors along the walls. Most of them looked old and worn. One door stood out. It was smooth and clean. The wood was lighter in color and a small symbol was carved into the center. Lena felt her breath slow as she stared at the symbol. She had seen it before many times. Her grandmother used to draw it in the margins of letters and notebooks. Lena once asked what it meant, but Mira only smiled and said some things reveal themselves when the time is right. Lena placed her hand near the door handle but stopped. A strange feeling passed through her chest. It was not fear but something close to it. The house was quiet, yet it felt like something was waiting. She stepped back and looked around the hallway. At the end, she noticed a staircase leading upward. She decided to explore the rest of the house first. Upstairs she found 2 small rooms. One looked like a bedroom. A bed was neatly made and sunlight fell softly across it. The other room looked like a study. A desk stood near the window and papers were stacked carefully. Lena picked up one page and saw her grandmother's handwriting. The words spoke about the forest and the house. They spoke about listening and protecting and keeping balance. Lena felt a tight feeling in her chest as she read. Her grandmother had lived 2 lives. One in the city and one here. Lena returned downstairs and stood again in front of the strange door. She knew this was the heart of the house. Whatever was behind it was meant for her. She took a deep breath and wrapped her fingers around the handle. Her grandmother trusted her. That thought gave her strength. Lena opened the door and stepped inside. The room beyond was nothing like she expected. Lena stepped into the hidden room and felt the air change around her. The space was warm and quiet in a comforting way. Soft light filled the room though there were no lamps or windows in sight. The walls were made of smooth wood and carved with symbols similar to the one on the door. The floor felt solid and clean beneath her feet. At the center of the room stood a long wooden table. On top of it rested several objects placed carefully in a straight line. Lena moved closer and studied them one by one. There was an old book with a thick cover. Next to it lay a small metal key. Beside the key was a glass stone that glowed softly from inside. The light within the stone moved slowly like a calm breath. Lena reached out and touched the book. As soon as her fingers brushed the cover, the book opened by itself. Pages turned slowly until they stopped at the first page. Lena stepped back in surprise, but the feeling passed quickly. She felt calm again, as if the room itself was telling her there was nothing to fear. The writing on the page was familiar. It was her grandmother Myra's handwriting. The first lines spoke directly to Lena. They said that if Lena was reading this, then she had already entered the heart of the house. They said the house was not just wood and walls but a place of memory and care. The forest around it was protected by those who understood its balance. Lena read slowly and carefully. The book explained that long ago the house was built by people who listened closely to nature. They believed the forest was alive and needed guardians. Each generation one person was chosen to care for the house and protect the forest from harm. Myra had been that guardian for many years. Lena felt her chest tighten as she continued reading. Her grandmother had never spoken of this responsibility. The book explained that the guardian lived a normal life outwardly but always stayed connected to the house. When the time came, the role would pass to someone new. Lena turned the page and read about the glass stone. It was called the heart stone. It allowed the guardian to sense changes in the forest. When the forest was healthy, the stone glowed softly. When something was wrong, the light would shift. Lena picked up the stone and felt a gentle warmth in her palm. The glow remained steady. She felt a strange connection, as if the stone recognized her. The next pages spoke about the key. The key unlocked hidden paths in the forest. These paths were not always visible. Only the guardian could see them when needed. Lena looked at the key and noticed it was shaped like a leaf. As Lena read further, she learned why her grandmother kept her distance from the house. The role of guardian required balance. Too much time spent in the forest could pull the guardian away from ordinary life. Myra chose to live in the city to keep that balance. She returned to the house only when necessary. Lena closed the book slowly and looked around the room again. Everything felt peaceful yet heavy with responsibility. She sat down on a bench near the wall and tried to steady her thoughts. She thought of her life in the city. Her small apartment. Her job. Her routines. None of that felt connected to this place. And yet she felt a deep pull toward the house. A soft sound echoed through the room. Lena stood up quickly. The sound came again. It was gentle like a low hum. The heart stone in her hand pulsed slightly brighter. Lena moved toward the door and opened it. The hallway outside looked the same, but something had changed. The light coming through the windows was warmer. The house felt more awake. She stepped outside onto the front porch. The forest stood still, but she noticed details she had missed before. The leaves shimmered softly. The air carried a deep calm. She felt like she could sense the space between the trees. Lena took a step off the porch and paused. She noticed a narrow path leading away from the house. She was sure it had not been there earlier. The ground looked smooth and untouched. She held the key tightly and felt a gentle pull toward the path. Lena followed it slowly. The forest did not feel dark anymore. It felt open and welcoming. As she walked, she saw signs of change. Some trees leaned slightly. A small stream nearby flowed slower than it should. Lena felt a quiet concern rise in her chest. The heartstone glowed brighter for a moment, then dimmed slightly. Lena understood. Something in the forest was not balanced. She reached a small clearing where the ground looked dry and cracked. The trees around it stood silent. Lena knelt down and placed her hand on the earth. She felt a faint vibration beneath her palm. The book had said the guardian must listen first. Lena closed her eyes and focused on the sounds around her. She listened to the wind, the leaves, the distant stream. Slowly she felt a rhythm. The forest was asking for care, not force. Lena stood up and took a deep breath. She did not know everything yet. But she knew one thing clearly. Her grandmother had trusted her for a reason. Lena turned back toward the house with a steady heart. Her journey had only begun. Lena returned to the house before the light faded. The forest felt different now that she had walked its hidden path. The air felt closer and warmer, as if it recognized her presence. When Lena stepped onto the porch, the house gave a soft sound like old wood stretching. It felt like a quiet welcome. Inside the house, Lena placed the heartstone carefully on the table. Its light was steady but not as bright as before. She remembered the book and the words about listening. She knew she still had much to learn. The responsibility her grandmother carried now rested on her shoulders. Lena spent the rest of the evening reading the old book. Each page taught her something new. Some pages spoke about simple tasks like keeping the forest paths clear and listening to changes in water and soil. Other pages spoke about deeper things like patience and balance. The book never used forceful words. Everything was gentle and calm. As night settled, Lena lit a small lamp and sat near the window. The forest outside was dark but not frightening. Moonlight filtered through the trees and cast soft patterns on the floor. Lena felt tired but peaceful. She decided to sleep in the house that night. The bedroom upstairs felt warm and safe. Lena lay on the bed and listened to the quiet sounds of the forest. Her thoughts drifted to her grandmother. Mira had carried this duty alone for many years. Lena felt a mix of sadness and respect. During the night, Lena dreamed. She stood in the forest beside her grandmother. Mira looked younger and stronger than Lena remembered. They walked together without speaking. Mira stopped beside a tree and placed her hand on its trunk. The tree glowed softly. Mira turned to Lena and smiled. In the dream, Mira spoke clearly. She said the forest does not need a ruler. It needs a listener. She said fear breaks balance faster than mistakes. She said trust yourself. Lena woke as sunlight entered the room. The dream stayed clear in her mind. She felt calm and ready. After breakfast, Lena stepped outside and followed the hidden path again. The heartstone glowed slightly brighter as she walked. She noticed more details this time. Birds gathered quietly. The air shifted gently. Lena reached the clearing where the ground was dry. She knelt and examined the soil. It felt weak and cracked. She remembered a passage in the book about water flow and roots. She followed the ground with her eyes and noticed a fallen tree blocking a narrow stream nearby. The water had been diverted away from the clearing. Lena understood what needed to be done. She did not rush. Lena went back to the house and returned with simple tools she found stored neatly behind the fireplace. Her grandmother had prepared everything. Lena worked slowly through the afternoon. She moved smaller branches first and carefully adjusted the fallen tree. She did not force it. She let the water guide her actions. When the stream began to flow freely again, the sound changed. It became smoother and steady. The heartstone glowed brighter in her pocket. Lena returned to the clearing and watched as water slowly reached the dry ground. She felt a quiet joy. The forest responded gently. Leaves shifted. The air felt lighter. As Lena stood there, she felt something else. A presence, but not a threat. She turned slowly and saw a figure standing at the edge of the clearing. It was a man around her age. His clothes were simple and worn. He held no tools or weapons. He stood calmly with open hands. His eyes showed curiosity, not fear. Lena stayed still. She remembered the rule from the book. Not all who enter the forest mean harm. The man spoke first. His voice was respectful. He said his name was Noah. He said he lived in a small village beyond the forest. He had followed the old paths since he was young. Recently the paths had shifted and he wanted to understand why. Lena listened carefully. She felt no warning from the heartstone. She told him she had inherited the house and was learning how to care for the forest. Noah nodded as if the answer made sense to him. He said his grandmother once spoke of a house that listened to trees. Lena felt surprised. She had thought the knowledge was hidden. Noah explained that some families remembered pieces of the old ways. Not enough to guide the forest, but enough to respect it. He said he would never take more than needed and always left offerings of care. Lena felt relief. The forest did not belong to only one person. It belonged to those who respected it. They walked together briefly. Noah showed her places where plants grew weaker and where animals avoided. Lena listened and learned. As the sun lowered, Noah stopped and said he would not go further. He said the heart of the forest was for the guardian alone. Lena thanked him. Before leaving, Noah said something important. He said balance is easier when shared, but trust must come first. Lena returned to the house before nightfall. She felt tired but fulfilled. She wrote notes in the book describing what she learned. The book accepted her writing, and the ink settled smoothly into the page. That night the forest slept peacefully. Lena stood at the window and looked out at the trees. She no longer felt like a visitor. She felt like a part of something older and deeper. She knew challenges would come. She knew mistakes would happen. But she also knew she was not alone. The house stood strong behind her. The forest breathed steadily around her. And Lena was ready to listen. Morning came quietly to the forest. A soft light passed through the trees and touched the windows of the house. Lena woke early and felt a calm strength inside her. The forest felt steady again, but she knew balance was something that needed constant care. One good day did not mean the work was finished. Lena washed her face and prepared a simple meal. As she moved through the house, she noticed small changes. The walls felt warmer. The air felt lighter. It was as if the house itself approved of her actions from the day before. She placed the heartstone in her pocket and stepped outside. The stone glowed gently. Lena followed a different path this time. It appeared as she focused her thoughts. The ground shifted slightly and revealed a narrow trail leading deeper into the forest. As Lena walked, she noticed signs of quiet trouble. Some plants had lost their color. A few trees leaned too far toward one side. Birds were fewer than before. None of this felt urgent, but it felt important. The book had warned her about slow imbalance, the kind that grows when ignored. Lena reached a wide area where the forest floor dipped. Water once flowed here long ago, but now the ground was damp and heavy. Lena crouched and touched the soil. It felt cold and crowded. Too much water had settled here with nowhere to go. She remembered another lesson. Balance was not only about giving but also about guiding. Lena walked the edge of the area and studied the land. She noticed a natural slope blocked by stones and roots. Over time the water had lost its path. Lena understood what needed to be done. She worked patiently. She moved small stones and cleared roots that blocked the natural flow. She did not rush. She paused often to listen. Slowly the water began to shift. It moved gently along a new path and spread evenly through the forest floor. The heart stone glowed warmly. Lena felt tired but satisfied. She sat on a fallen log and rested. As she breathed, she felt a sense of connection. She was not forcing change. She was helping the forest remember its own shape. A sound reached her ears. Soft steps on leaves. Lena stood and turned calmly. Noah appeared between the trees. He raised his hand in greeting and stopped at a respectful distance. He said he felt the forest change and wanted to make sure everything was well. Lena nodded and explained what she had done. Noah listened closely and smiled. He said the water felt lighter where he lived near the edge of the forest. They walked together again, but this time Lena led. She showed Noah how the paths revealed themselves when the forest trusted you. Noah watched carefully but did not try to follow the hidden trails. He respected the boundary. As they walked, Noah shared stories from his village. He spoke of elders who remembered the forest when it was healthier. He spoke of small signs people ignored because they seemed harmless. Lena listened and learned. They reached a place where young trees struggled to grow. Lena felt the heart stone dim slightly. She knelt and examined the ground. It was too tight. The roots could not spread. Noah offered help without touching. He said his people once loosened soil gently with wooden tools and patience. Lena agreed. Together they worked slowly. The soil softened and the roots had space again. The heart stone glowed steady. As the sun moved lower, Noah prepared to leave. He thanked Lena for trusting him. Lena thanked him for respecting the forest. Before leaving, Noah shared one warning. He said not everyone would understand what she did. Some would want to take from the forest without listening. Balance would be tested not only by nature but by people. Lena understood. She returned to the house alone. The weight of responsibility felt heavier now, but it did not scare her. She knew challenges were part of the role. Inside the house, Lena opened the book and wrote about the water and the soil and Noah. The pages accepted her words. New symbols appeared faintly around the edges. The book was responding. As evening fell, Lena felt a strange pull toward the upper floor. She followed it to the study. One drawer in the desk felt warmer than the rest. She opened it and found a small wooden box. Inside the box lay letters written by her grandmother. Each was marked with a date. Lena realized these letters were written during moments of doubt and difficulty. Mira had never shared her struggles out loud, but she had written them here. Lena read slowly. Mira wrote about times when the forest was hurt by careless actions. She wrote about moments when she felt alone. She wrote about fear of failing. But each letter ended the same way. Mira reminded herself that listening mattered more than perfection. Lena closed the box with a deep breath. She felt closer to her grandmother than ever before. That night the heart stone pulsed brighter than usual. Lena stepped outside and looked toward the forest. A distant sound echoed. A low, uneasy shift. Lena followed the sound until she reached a part of the forest she had not yet explored. The trees here were dense and the air felt heavy. The heart stone dimmed and brightened in warning. Something was wrong. Lena stopped and listened carefully. She sensed disturbance not from nature but from outside influence. The ground felt tense. The forest was alert. Lena knew this would be her first true test. She turned back toward the house to prepare. She did not panic. She remembered the words from her dream. The forest does not need a ruler. It needs a listener. As Lena walked back, she felt the house waiting. The path beneath her feet stayed clear. The forest watched quietly. And something unseen waited as well. Lena returned to the house with steady steps. The forest behind her felt tense but quiet. She knew something was wrong, yet she did not feel fear. She felt focus. The heart stone in her pocket glowed softly, as if reminding her to stay calm. Inside the house, Lena placed the heart stone on the table and opened the old book. The pages turned slowly until they stopped on a section she had not read before. The words spoke of disturbance caused by careless taking. They spoke of people who entered the forest without respect and tried to bend it to their will. Lena understood now. The forest was not hurt by nature. It was hurt by choice. She closed the book and listened. The house was silent but alert. A faint vibration passed through the floor. Lena placed her hand against the wall and felt the forest breathing unevenly. She stepped outside and followed the pull of the heart stone. The hidden path appeared quickly and led her deeper into the forest than she had ever gone before. The trees here were tall and close together. The air felt heavy and pressed against her skin. Soon Lena saw the cause. At the edge of a clearing stood 3 people. They had set up tools and marked trees with bright paint. Wooden boards lay stacked nearby. The forest around them felt strained and uneasy. Lena stopped at a distance and watched. The heart stone dimmed sharply. She stepped forward calmly and spoke in a clear, steady voice. She asked them to stop. The people turned in surprise. One of them spoke sharply and said they had permission to be there. Lena asked from whom. They hesitated. She could hear uncertainty in their voices. Lena did not raise her voice. She explained that the forest was protected and fragile. She said taking without listening would cause harm beyond what they could see. One of them laughed and waved her off. He said land was land and trees were meant to be used. The forest responded. A strong wind moved through the clearing. Leaves swirled and branches bent low. The ground trembled slightly. Nothing broke and no one was hurt, but the warning was clear. The people stepped back in fear. Lena stood firm. She did not command the forest. She listened and allowed it to speak for itself. She explained again, but this time slower. She spoke of balance. She spoke of how careless actions could dry water sources and weaken soil. She spoke of how the forest gave freely when treated with care. One person lowered their tools. Another followed. The one who laughed earlier looked uncertain now. The forest around them had gone still but watchful. Noah appeared quietly behind Lena. He did not speak. His presence alone showed support. The people glanced at him and then at the forest. Finally they agreed to leave. They gathered their tools and backed away slowly. The heart stone brightened as they crossed the edge of the clearing. The forest relaxed. When they were gone, Lena felt her knees weaken slightly. She sat down on a fallen log and breathed deeply. Noah approached and asked if she was all right. Lena nodded. She said she did not scare them. She simply let the forest be heard. Noah smiled and said that was true guardianship. Together they walked back toward the house. The forest felt lighter with every step. Birds returned to the branches. The air felt clean again. At the house Noah stopped. He said he would spread word in the village that the forest was watched and cared for. Not with fear but with respect. Lena thanked him. As Noah left, Lena stood on the porch and looked at the trees. She felt tired but strong. She knew this would not be the last challenge, but she also knew she could face them. Inside the house, Lena opened the box of letters one last time. She placed a new letter inside written in her own hand. She wrote about the clearing and the people and how the forest responded. She thanked her grandmother for trusting her. That night Lena dreamed again. She stood in the forest beside the house. The trees glowed softly and the ground felt warm beneath her feet. Her grandmother stood beside her and placed a hand on her shoulder. Mira said nothing. She only smiled with pride. Lena woke with peace in her heart. Days passed and the forest grew healthier. Water flowed smoothly. Plants regained color. Animals returned to old paths. The heart stone glowed steady and calm. Lena found balance in her new life. She traveled to the city when needed and returned to the house when the forest called. She learned to listen not only to trees and water but to herself. The house remained quiet and strong. The book continued to accept her words. New symbols formed slowly as knowledge grew. Lena was no longer surprised by the strange house in the forest. She understood now that the shock was not what was inside the house. The true shock was what she discovered inside herself. The forest did not change her. It reminded her who she was meant to be.